Hey guys, we are live. I think everyone should be able to hear me, and it looks like the levels are coming through. Let me know if it's too loud or too quiet, and I can adjust it. I played with the new overlay today during our director's meeting, so check it out. See if you like this one better or worse than the last one. It's brighter. I've got lots of complaints that the last one was too dark. But I'm here with Brent Evans, art director for Catalyst Game Labs. Hi, Brent.
Hello, how is it, everybody? By the way,
Uh,
your overlay, can it make me look taller?
I mean, you
The
do look
hair?
tall because you're kind of looking down at the camera, so you
I'll
you
totally
do,
take it.
yeah,
I'll
right.
totally take it.
I look up. I tend to look up at the camera. So, awesome. Let me know if Brent's sound is coming through okay as well. And shout out to the moderators here in chat. I think Shock is going to be here today, keeping track of questions. So please at Shock if you have any, and they'll make sure that I see them toward the end of the show here. But in the meantime, I want to get into Tuesday Newsday stuff. So we have just a couple of new things to tell you guys. Mercenary shipping update. I know everyone is chomping at the bit for new numbers, us included. QML is getting us a new list on Friday. So I don't know when on Friday. It could be late enough, plus we need review time and everything. So you may not hear from us until Monday about shipping. But we have, that's honestly a lot sooner than I thought it was going to be. It took them like a month to just, there's so many orders to get us quotes on the initial round of orders, and then finding out about that Savannah's issue with the dimensions. That's like at least a third of our orders that they had to go through and requote. So it's faster than I thought it would be, and I'm happy for that, but stay tuned. We'll get you more info as soon as we have it. Then I've got a little shout out for you guys for a new project. I'm going to go get the link actually because I didn't get it ahead of time. I asked someone for it and then promptly forgot about it.
There's a link?
There's a link. I'm going to put links in chat for things. We have, there is a project that's live on Kickstarter now by one of our creators that did Hollow Streets for Shadowrun. The company name is Vector Tridents. They're all demo agents, and they are Shadowrun players, and they're all veterans. So they're all pilots. And so they decided that when they play Shadowrun that the riggers don't get enough love, so they created a hex-based aerial combat minis game that's system agnostic that you can play for Shadowrun, like in the middle of, like, if you're in a chase scene or an extraction or anything like that, you can stop your Shadowrun game, play this for like 45 minutes, and then go back to your game. But also, if you're a battletech player, it's a hex-based game. It's got cool minis, cool drones, cool everything. So I'm going to give you guys the link for this. The rules for, if you want to skin it for Shadowrun or you want the Shadowrun rules, it is live now on Hollow Streets. And this Kickstarter is actually for the minis. So there you go. You can check that out. And throw them some support if you feel like it. Or even share. For creators like this, a share goes a long way. Because someone might see it that would like it. And it's great to support other creators in the community and space. All right. I think that's my news. Let me scroll through and make sure that's everything new. In the past, we've talked about the Centurion and Fandubel are live on the Catalyst store. You can get your board games, and Jennifer Brozek's Kickstarter is still live. Dear Penpal, Belgium 1980. The link is in the description. And don't forget, if you do enjoy what we're doing here, like and subscribe so that you get to hear about other stuff that we will eventually be putting out as we get organized. So, whew.
We do cool stuff.
We do cool stuff. Brent, I want to adjust your camera a little bit
Sure.
because I am cutting you off at like eyebrow level. So I'm going to do that real fast.
That could be kind of fun, just as long as the BattleTech logo's in there.
Yeah, right.
That I waited way too long for. So.
That's really what I'm trying to show off here instead of you. All right. So
my eyes are up here.
Well done.
It's the only time in my whole life I got to use that line. So.
It was a good usage. I approve. All right. Transitioning. All the edits are done. Hooray. Now let's talk about art and stuff.
Sure.
So Brent, I want to get to know you first. I feel like we've done this before, but a lot of our viewers, you have to follow us in specific places to be able to see this. So I just end up asking you and playing the get to know you game all over again, and it's fun.
Okay. And honestly, I don't remember where exactly you joined into the team, because obviously you came in like well and truly in motion and jumped on the speeding bullet train. But yeah, so I was hired all the way back by Jordan Weissman. Back when he was doing WizKids. So he had.
I just met him.
You did just meet him. We had a good time hanging out with him at Adepticon. That was actually a lot of fun. He's a very interesting person.
Yeah.
He's a totally brilliant person in so many nuances with regarding to the game industry and the way that games really reflect other industries around, just culture and technology and so many other things. So he's really interesting to talk.
For those who don't know, by the way, we gotta give the context here. Jordan Weissman is the creator of both Shadowrun and BattleTech and Crimson Skies and something else I'm missing.
A whole bunch of others. Yeah.
Shameless shout out, shameless plug here. He's one of my clients now for my company, and he's putting out a new design your own video game without coding experience thing. So I'm sure we'll probably have him on at some point to talk about that here on the show. So, but Brent, you were actually with me a couple weeks ago when I realized who Jordan was, and
it was cute watching you just completely geek out.
Yeah,
it was.
I crapped my pants a little bit. So.
Yeah. So on a similar note, so man, I want to say it was 2000-ish. 2002, somewhere in there. Jordan has been producing the Metclicks game for WizKids. That was back when he owned WizKids, and they'd had declining sales for a couple of consecutive releases. So he was looking at somebody to come in and help clean up all the art stuff. I didn't realize it at the time, but apparently they had like 4 different game lines that were all like 2 months behind schedule, and they just desperately needed help. And so it just happened to be the same time that I reached out, because I realized like I got in my illustration career. I'd been a freelancer for 17 years before I ever contacted Jordan. And I got my career to the point where I could kind of pick and choose my projects. I'm like, you know what? If it's something I don't want to work on, you just can't pay me enough. And it's something that I do want to work on, then I don't care about the money.
Wow.
So I kind of realized it at the time, Halo hadn't come out. So it was the BattleTech, Shadowrun, or Star Wars. Those were my 3 in order. And then I realized that BattleTech and Shadowrun were both being produced like literally in the next town over. And Star Wars, they were requiring everybody to move down to California to work at Skywalker Ranch. So I reached out to my own personal network, and it turned out one of my best friends, the guy in my BattleTech player group, one of his best friends was actually over at R&D at WizKids. And so I sent him my like a friend of a friend. They weren't posting for jobs, but I sent in my resume, and 3 days later, I get a call. Yeah, we want you to come in for an interview. Like, great, that's awesome. They're like, yeah, can you show up Thursday? I'm like, oh, yeah, absolutely, no problem whatsoever. Of course, that's what you say, and you have no idea if you can actually do it.
Right.
But yeah, so we got off the call, and I looked at my portfolio, and went, there is nothing in any of my portfolio that is actually Shadowrun or BattleTech. Nothing. I didn't have a single, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got lucky that they gave me the interview, but I better show up with something. So for the next 3 days, I did nothing but just crank out a whole bunch of concept works. And what they were looking for was concept art. So I cranked out 18 illustrations, and I signed and dated them. I printed them up. So when I went to the interview, like everybody sits down and you hand across your resume. So I handed across my resumes to the 2 people that were interviewing me. And then I pulled out this pile of illustrations, and I just fanned them across the table. And we're going on the conference, like just like any interview, just going through the motions. And they stopped the interview about 15 minutes and like, wait a minute, there's dates on these. Is these actually the dates you drew these? Yeah. And I told them the story that I didn't have anything before. Like, okay, basically at that point, the interview was over. What I didn't realize is they were so behind, and everything that I just delivered would fill in the stuff that they were behind on their deliverables. So like next thing I know, I'm in an interview with Jordan Weissman. And I'm like, I am such a diehard, rabid BattleTech fan. They actually, when they hired me, Jordan even told me, like, you know more about BattleTech than anyone on my staff could put together. So he brought me in as like a gunslinger. And which, for people that are diehard BattleTech fans, you'll know what gunslingers are. And Shadowrunners, you pretty much know exactly what they are automatically just from context. So anyway, so I'm sitting in an interview with Jordan Weissman. At the time when he was doing WizKids, his office, every wall surface, you could not see wall. It was floor to, and I mean literally ceiling all the way around his office of toys, figures, things that haven't released yet, the prototypes from China, all the things like, it was like a toy lover and a Battletech lover's wonderland. Of course, Shadowrun, like the big giant Shadowrun figures and all these like floor to ceiling. So I'm in this room of distractions, talking to Jordan Weissman, and in my head, I swear 80% of my brain was going, "You're Jordan Weissman. Do you know Jordan Weissman? You are totally Jordan Weissman." I'm sitting here talking to Jordan. Are you even aware that you are Jordan Weissman? I had no idea what was coming out of my mouth, and he laughs about it. In fact, at dinner, when we all went out at Adepticon, he's like, "Yeah, you sounded pretty coherent." I'm like, "Good," because I had no idea what I was saying. I was like, "You're Jordan Weissman." So, yeah, it was pretty fun. Anyway, apparently I didn't bite my tongue too badly in the interview because he hired me, and the rest has been history. So it was funny. They hired me for a 5-week contract to catch up the Battletech line, which I completed the work in under 5 days. And so then they started throwing me on all of the other lines that they had that were behind schedule. And it was, I believe, 2.5 weeks, maybe not even. I completed all of the work from all of the lines. I caught everything up, so they're now a month ahead of schedule. And so he's like, sat me down. So yeah, and I was used to drawing comics in the 90s. So like a comic book illustrator draws 10 to 15 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, nonstop. There's no pause. You actually really have to train your body to physically be able to draw that much. It is a huge, intense, work ethic that you have to do that. But when when they brought me in, I'm just cranking. They're like, whoa. So what was funny is that they like told me at 2.5 weeks. So yeah, so you're done. You've completed everything. Thank you very much. We're just gonna end your contract early. Go home. So I go home with my sad little stuff in a box. And what I didn't know is that Randall Bills had walked past my desk while I was doing that. And he just took one look at this wall of sketches that I had for all of the things that were going on. Of course, it was all Battletech. And he didn't say a word to me. Nothing. He just went right to my boss and said, "When you're done with him, I want him." And so I got home with my sad little, box of patheticness. And I get home and there's an email in my inbox from Randall Bill saying, "Hey, I want you to work on Battletech." And
that's the best story ever.
Yeah. So I instantly became one of the core line illustrators for Battletech.
That's amazing.
So for like almost 5 years, I was a core illustrator for Battletech, and then I showed up to. They invited me to come as a special guest to Gen Con 2008, and that was right when Randall had just finally gotten the very first of the new Battletech box sets. This was a massive thing. It had like 25 miniatures in it. I'm like, this was a huge thing for Battletech. It was this moment of getting these box sets finally out of China and back into production and stuff. And so I show up. And I'm seeing Randall hug this pile of stuff, like the product dump at the beginning of the booth, and he just sat me next to the ammo dunk. He said, "You just sign autographs. This is your job." And I'm like, "Okay, great. Let's talk to the fans. Like they never let me out, so this is awesome." So yeah, so while I was doing, I'm like, this actually is a pretty cool little company. It really is. Battletech, for the presence it has in gaming, it really is a little family-owned business. Like that's just the way it is. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. If there's anything I can do to help you guys, you let me know. And what I didn't realize, I said that to Heather, Lauren Coleman, Heather Coleman, the co-owner of Catalyst. And she's, after the show, she pulled Lauren and Randall aside. She's like, "We need to find the place to use him." So yeah, the following, it was February 2nd. So that was Gen Con. So obviously add in 6 months for things to go through the wheels. That's the way it is. But I get a call, and this is the time the mortgage industry had completely melted down. We were setting record numbers of layoffs. It was like, 19,000 record layoffs a day, like huge layoffs. The industries were banking, the banking industry was tanking and everything. And I get a call out of the blue to interview for my dream job that they had not posted. They hadn't listed this anywhere. Like, "Yeah, we want you to come and interview for the job of being the art director for Battletech." And actually all of Catalyst. So it was Battletech, Shadowrun, and at the time they were producing Eclipse Phase. So we want interview to be the art director for everything. And I paused, and there's these moments in life or it's almost like the stars align. And I hear them calling me out of the blue to offer me the dream job that they've never posted during a time when like the most, layoffs ever. And what came out of my mouth was, okay, well, I can show up on Tuesday for the interview, or I can show up on Tuesday to start working. Which would you prefer? And that was it. That was the totality of the interview. Apparently the interview basically happened at Gen Con here.
Oh.
They knew they wanted me. I didn't know that. I had no idea, but I'm like, I can just dig in and get started right now, or we can go through the interview process. And they're like, all right, show up to work on Tuesday.
That's so cool.
So, yeah. So February 2nd, 2009 was my first day. And I showed up and I had spark, just like you can imagine. I could see from looking at your, wow, you got handled the keys to the castle for Shadowrun and battletech. Oh my God, that's the coolest. And I'm like geeking out. I'm like, oh yeah. So Randall, go ahead. Give me my list of artists. Tell me who I got to work with. And he handed me 6 names. And I'm like, that's not a list, dude. That's not, no. Yeah, 6 months later, I had 300 artists working for Catalyst.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah. You said at the beginning your top 3 were Battletech, Shadowrun, and Star Wars. Did you ever, you got the 2. Did you ever get the 3rd?
I've still never worked on Star Wars, but one of the first artists that I hired, and amazing guy, he ended up leaving about 3 years in because he got scouted from the work he did on Battletech to go work on Star Wars.
That's
cool. And he's he was there. I think he was there for a decade.
Wow.
Like, honestly, yeah. So amazing art.
February 2009. So it's been now 15 years
15
for
years.
you with Battletech and Shadowrun amongst the different companies and stuff like that. So what, gosh, first of all, I can't believe we've never done this before, but I don't think I've ever seen a Brent Evans original. Like, I've known you as the art director.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, like,
you know what?
Do you have any
I'm kind of good with that.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
I'll be the ghost in the machine. Yeah, no. So at the time, BattleTech was black and white. So and everything was line art. So my specialty, I mean, I'm a very, very classically trained illustrator. Back from the days when every time you had an edit, you redrew the entire illustration from scratch.
Oh my gosh.
Every time. So light tables and all that, but way before digital. Like 1987, I became a pro when I was in high school still.
Wow.
Yeah, so just so much about things evolved, and what we learned really quickly, because when I was hired to be the art director, like, you can illustrate whatever you want, but just know your goal is to be the art director for everything if you want to do some illustrations. And so I illustrated for Battletech and Shadowrun for probably 5 years, usually just doing fill-ins when artists blew their deadlines and we were really close up to them. Like, fine, I'll just burn the midnight oil and I'll just crank out an illustration. But that was still when we were all black and white.
Wow,
so
that's so
as
exciting.
as soon as we shifted both lines over to color, I'm like, at this point, there is no reason.
You're gonna have to show me something. We can do it offline. If you can, shoot me an email and I'll put something up on the screen. But wow, that's a really awesome story. And coming from so doing 15 years with Battletech and Shadowrun, like you said at the beginning of your story, like, you could go anywhere.
Absolutely, the dream come true. Like, this was, I got my 2 favorite things. I got handed the keys to the castle.
Is that why
my
15
job
years?
has been.
Is that why 15 years later you're still here? And like, have you thought about going to Star Wars or something else?
Yeah, many times. I think any professional in any role, you entertain the thought along the way of, is this the time for me to start a new chapter?
Yeah.
The important thing to know is, for any creative person, am I going through the motions? Do I still have something to give?
Yeah.
And what quickly, in hindsight, it feels quickly. At the time, it was grueling. But by 5 years in, I think I had pretty much stopped illustrating. Because what I'd found is that over that first window, the only times that I was illustrating is when, we were literally hours to going to print, and somebody blew something and I had to draw something to fill in. So I was never I was never given, like, everything was done right. It was like the worst possible scenario of, now just cranks out something really, really fast, so we have something on the page. and that's not coming from a place of positive creativity.
Sure.
That's you just desperately trying to, that's when your training really kicks in of, okay, I can crank stuff out, but it's not fun. You're eating a bag of cookies while you're doing it. And at any point in time, like any professional, especially I think authors and illustrators, we both have that thing where you can't bleed inspiration from a stone. It has to be coming from a place of genuine excitement.
Yeah.
And so what I have found is that I've been far more effective in literally looking the world over and finding creative people that are passionate about what they're doing and are genuinely interested in what we are producing, and then supporting them, giving them the keys that they need to do battletech and shadowrun correctly, really run with it. And that's one of the benefits that we've had in growing what we now, like, we hear all the time about the visuals for battletech, the visuals for shadowrun, like they're just so good. The new generation of artists are so good, and that comes from a very real place of, we've been able to build a global fan base for 4 generations. People have grown up, become professional illustrators, and once they're established, and like me, they can kind of pick and choose. They're like, you know what, I really want to draw Shadowrun. I really want to draw battletech and stuff, and I'm able to give them a chance to do that, which is a lot of fun. One of the first artists I pulled out of my slush pile was a European competitive illustration champion named Peter Tikos, who still to this day does covers on Shadowrun.
Wow.
He's actually one of the most sought after tattoo artists in the world right now.
Neat.
And he's absolutely phenomenal. And I pulled him out of the slush pile. I pulled the lead character designer out of DreamWorks out of the slush pile because he was a diehard Shadowrun fan. So you just have these people that have gone on, to greatness, but what they still are inspired by are these things that they grew up with. They had so much fun with the experiences of playing battletech or playing Shadowrun, and that's the magic. That's the lightning in the bottle, and that's what keeps people coming back over and over and over. So
Brent, it's conversations like this, like seeing your utter enthusiasm and love, and talking about the enthusiasm and love of artists and stuff like that. That's the thing that drew me in to Catalyst. I started as a groupie, like hanging out at the cons and hovering by the booth and being like, the art director talked to me, and now we get to work together, and it's like that's one of the things that makes Catalyst special to me.
I think we all saw that in you, and the funny thing is that it always reminded you were one of the, for those of us that don't know out in the world, Catalyst still is a little bitty company. Like, there's not very many of us. So when we added Rem, we added Mike, we added a couple other staff members, but that is a massive hiring growth for Catalyst, because we are so small that adding 1 or 2 people is a huge boom.
Yeah.
But it was fun when you came in. We were like, oh yeah, we all remember when we were like that, because all of us started as diehard fans, and all of us did something that caught somebody's attention.
Yeah.
And like for me, when Jordan Weissman was like, oh yeah, I want this guy. Like that's like a diehard Star Trek fan getting tapped by Gene Roddenberry to work on the next movie. You like, you just pee your pants and you geek out and you can't hold a conversation for a week. Like, there's no way around it. And so it's kind of nice to just periodically bring in the next super excited person and see, oh yeah, that's before all the shiny get worn off.
Fair. You actually reminded me something that I did not include in the notes for the news that absolutely is newsworthy is we do have a new Catalyst employee that just started last week.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell the world.
We have, I'm pleased to announce, and a lot of you guys will recognize this name from his writing with Battletech and Shadowrun. Michael Sierravella is, or how did we pronounce it for the past 2.5 hours in that meeting?
We were mispronouncing it intentionally in every different way we could think of.
Yeah, it was.
He'll always be Sierravella to me.
Yeah. He said off the boat it was Chiaravella, I think.
I think he said it in the original Italian. It was Chiaravella.
So,
but when his family came to the U.S., they changed the pronunciation, and I think now he says Sear. Like he just slurs the first batch of letters together.
Yeah. We all practiced it for about half the meeting earlier today. So he is our new events manager. So he's going to be liaising. You had it right. with the demo team and connecting them with Catalyst. He's going to be doing our event planning, sending the booth, sending the merch, everything that you see about events in general that Catalyst goes to is now under Michael's wings. So congratulations to Michael. Super
Can I
excited.
jump in a little extra thing on this one? Yeah, so one of the for the folks that don't know, although I have always been the senior art director, about 5 years ago, I stepped in for a 2.5-year stint also as the line developer for Battletech. And one of the first things that we did was bring in the previous person in charge of all the demo agents, which was Mary Campen. And, Mary, me, and Ray, who is now the current line developer, we were the team that kind of like, okay, let's take Battletech and go through ultimately what was the rebranding, remodeling, the relaunching of the line, like all the things that we've done. Well, it was amazing. The role that Michael is now stepping into, it's funny because the previous role that Mary, the job that Mary did, when she stepped in, Battletech was a fraction of what it is now. The explosive growth year over year of the products, the product line, the excitement within stores, what we're doing, like all the demo agent stuff that now, Michael is stepping on the shoulders of what has been built, was built on, at the beginning of it was, we're just scratching stuff together and we're kind of inventing this as we go. What's cool about what Mike is doing now is that he's not alone. Like Mary was operating solo with very little support for a very long time. Mike is now, we've recognized it's time for Catalyst to shift gears, add a huge amount of support, like what you brought to it, what Mike is bringing to it, Topa, a wide variety of demo agents, James Kirtley, like there's a variety of other people that are stepping in to help build. It's time to take all of the demo agent stuff to that next level of the experiences in stores, the experiences at conventions, and ultimately, and I don't know if this has been teased or anything, but Catalyst wants there to be an organized play effort. There wants more support for events in stores and stuff. Yeah, totally. And that's one of those things is like, what? This is bringing in the whole new generation of folks to really take this and run far beyond. Here was the one person with no support or other assistance from the rest of the team. Now Catalyst has agreed, okay, we are to the point now, we have to shift gears. We have to take this into a whole new thing beyond what we've ever dreamed before, which is so cool what you and Mike have done.
Well, and with all of the movement on we're going to more cons than we ever used to. Even the demo agents go to cons without Catalyst support at the booths, things like that to be able to manage something on such a large scale. And then also to take it further, I know Michael and I have already talked about some ideas that we have for furthering some of our contact at these conventions, at these shows, at stores, even to be able to partner directly with Catalyst, do direct to retail sales, do coupons and merchandising and marketing and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to see. I
am too. There's so much Battletech is so much bigger than it ever was in the previous 5 years. Honestly, I genuinely believe Battletech is bigger now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
One of those big key indicators, Randall did the research, and even down to the heyday of FASA, the core box set was out of print 80% of the time. Until we relaunched with the Game of Armor Combat and Beginner boxes, Battletech had always been out of print at least 80% of the time. And now we are completely committed to keeping this at it will not be out of print. We will always have this thing available to support the fans, to support the stores, to support those retailers, like making this a really, really solid base, unlike anything we've ever seen before. Yeah. And obviously the excitement globally has supported that they like the general direction. Now, just to be clear, we're still a little teeny tiny company, and we are bound to continue to make mistakes here and there, but there will always be new mistakes.
Our motto is ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We don't always get it right, but I know that just from spending time with you guys, the intentions are always good. And we just want to do, we're fans of the IPs that we represent, and we just want to spread that love to everyone. So, but Brent, we have some stuff to show off.
Let's show off pretty pictures. Our team has been doing amazing stuff.
Just in time for me to create a new overlay, then Brent put me to the challenge and sent me, 33 plus 21. So 54 pieces of art right like 10 minutes before we were coming live. And I was like, we have to show this stuff. So
Well, I didn't want you to have it too far in advance. That would just be crazy.
I split my brand new overlay already so that you could see all this. So I'm going to switch us over. Whee! So this will just rotate through. What are we seeing art from, Brent?
So every year, every game line, both BattleTech and Shadowrun, try to have one big, what we call a tentpole product, a tentpole release, something that's big that affects like the storyline, the playability, all of the things that come spinning out of that, including fiction and novels and whatnot. So this year's big event is going to be the release of what's called Ilkon's Eyes Only. It's the follow-up to the Invasion of Terra that happened before. The truth is, like, this is going to be one of those moments where the impacts that happen with clans taking Terra, well, those ripple effects are going to just spread out across the inner sphere. And of course, it's always down to who's telling the story to the way they're going to spin the impression of it. Like, what's the impact of this? Well, depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to an inner spirer, they're going to have a very different feeling than a mercenary or a clansman. So Ilkon's Eyes Only is functionally a report, as I understand it, a report from the intelligence community to the new Ilkon of the status of events that are happening around the inner sphere. So in the universe of BattleTech, this is their spin on how they see the universe. Now, from a creative side, one of the coolest things about this is that we knew the events of an invasion of Terra was not about the invasion of Terra. It's that the repercussions of that would span a huge amount of stories all across the inner sphere for every single faction. All of a sudden, all these storylines become way more interesting, far more playability, campaigns, areas for adventures, a huge new explosion of mercenary units, so many things, storylines and nuances within the universe of BattleTech are going to get way more interesting now that event has happened, because functionally somebody just upended the table. Now all bets are off. A lot of things are in flux, and of course that always makes for exciting gameplay. So
that's awesome.
What we're seeing is that.
Tell us about. I know we've. The challenge here is that, Brent, you can't see anything other than what's on YouTube, which is a delay of who knows how long.
Okay.
So it's. Let me see if I can find even. Tell us about a couple of these pieces, and I can maybe pull one or two up.
You'll just have to tell me what they are.
Well, they're rotating pretty fast, but let me get through. If I go here and I go to my art folder that this is all cycling through, I saw one of them that actually looks pretty cyberpunk. It made me think of Shadowrun. It's the Smoke and Mirror Jaguars.
Okay. Yeah, that is very Shadowrun.
Tell us a little bit about that art piece, and I'll pull one up for us to see over the main overlay.
So, in fact, let me look at the art notes so I can even pry some really cool specific details out of
it. Ooh, look at us doing things on the fly.
Oh, yeah. It's almost like we planned it.
Ready? Shoot, aim.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, this is a cool, unusual image, especially because this is totally a Shadowrun type scene, but it's the fact that these events are happening in BattleTech is part of what the fans should see as like, wait a minute, what is going on? Because that, you put chocolate in my peanut butter kind of a thing. So let's see here.
Add source. Someday I'll have a producer. Open. Done. All right, I'm going to tick this over. Transition.
Okay, so I'm going to reveal a big thing. I'm sorry, total spoiler alert.
Oh boy!
In this book, turns out there's conflict.
What?
People are not getting along, and some people are probably going to be making mistakes. So, the Smoke and Mirror Jaguars scene actually shows a special ops team. Many people know that the Republic of the Spheres special ops forces now have been revealed to be the descendants of the Smoke Jaguars. This is a Smoke Jaguar special ops team actually taking action inside the Capellan Confederation.
Ooh.
Because it is possible that the Capellan Confederation may or may not have pissed off the folks that took Terra. It's almost as if the Celestial Wisdom didn't believe that the clans taking Terra means that they are now the rulers of Terra. So yeah, there could be some conflict there. So you're looking at Smoke Jaguar Special Forces.
That's so cool.
Actually, it's not. Yeah, actually sneaking in and doing espionage. Dare I say, Shadowrun-esque work within the Capella Confederation.
Who's the artist?
The illustrator on this one is a new artist, and I believe he's French.
Ooh.
Jens Lindfors. He's actually, for those of you that have been seeing the new generation of maps that we've been doing in BattleTech, those maps, the new map artist is Thomas Moore. And when the call went out for a variety of work, Thomas actually said, yeah, I'd love to do scene illustrations. And by the way, the guy that I share a studio with is also a great illustrator. He'd be awesome on this. And that was Jens. So this was literally this is a brand new artist to BattleTech, but he's been seeing the work that his buddy in the studio next to him has been doing. He's like, okay, what is that? I want to be a part of that.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, totally. So we are completely bringing in new artists because of the stuff that our teams are doing. Just excited for the visuals of what we've got going on over here at Catalyst.
The next one I'm going to pull up, Brent, is, it looks like a propaganda piece. It's Join the SLDF.
Yes. One of the fun things that we did, we've started to do what we'll call faction books, like books that are specific to a specific house or particular faction within the universe. And a few books back, we had also on a new artist. It may have actually been Thomas, now to think about it. We decided we want a recruiting poster.
Ooh.
All the way back in the early days, the very first, like the mid 80s, there was a recruiting poster for one of the factions. So we're like, that is so cool. If we could do like recruiting posters for these factions. So it turns out now, as we continue to move forward with these storyline books that are that shed more light on specific factions, we're trying to make more space for these, all the way down to, like the World War I, World War II-esque Captain America posters of, we want you kind of thing, and what each one of those would look like. So yeah, so the Join the SLDF thing, this one once again, this is done by Thomas Moore, the guy who's been doing the amazing map images for us. So yeah, this is one of his scenes of bringing something to life of just how cool this could be. And particularly, I love his choice to basically silhouette out the characters in the foreground. You rarely see that. Usually it's like spotlights on the person in the foreground, but it's not about the individual.
Yeah.
This one, it's about the force.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So while you were talking, I was like, I'll just go through click through real quick and find a couple images that really stand out, and then put those up.
Lot of them. You'll have.
I got to the first one.
A lot of amazing images.
So the first one here shows a flag. Well, two flags. One is on fire.
This is the cover.
This is the cover?
Yep.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And
tell us all the things.
You know what? I don't want to spoil this. What I will tell you is it's so funny, the creative process on this. Like once we get, like the developer has a vision, and usually the writers have a vision, and they don't get along. And so they'll beat each other up over it, and then they'll turn it over to me. And then I'll say, okay, well, that's a neat idea from an author content, but this is the things that will transfer well in an image, and this is the parts that won't.
Right.
So then, the developer is obviously Ray Rastia. Ray and I kind of went back and forth quite a bit on like the visuals for like the concept for this one. And this was a little bit of a work in progress where we assigned it out to the artist, like, here's the direction we want you to go, but we're not quite sure on some of the details, so leave those loose. And then as the details were coming in, I would throw them out to it. So the flags were kind of added as not really an afterthought, but they were definitely a mid-process sort of an element. Because we were thinking about doing like a space, like a battle up in the skies of the airspace forces and drop ships, and there should be, how many moons should there be, and what? And it's like, what we need to do is kind of hang that ethereal. These are the units, and the idea since the invasion of Terra is that Clan Wolf is reestablishing the Star League. But of course, when you think about those two things, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get along. Where's the division between those two? How does that all work? So the main vision that Ray had here is he really wanted to see a conflict between, a storied Capella and Confederation unit and a storied Clan Wolf unit. And so that was just the key of like giving us a really spectacular image of this battle. But when you get down to the nitty gritty on this one, the truth is both of these, there is no holds barred. Both of these factions, they fight absolutely all out. They will think nothing about ripping your eyeballs right out of your head. There is no pausing until death. And so, like, you just see these two mechs just absolutely blowing the shiznit out of each other because they do not hold back. There is no honor. Oh, we're just going to mildly limp you. No, this is all the way. So that was one of the beautiful parts of this image as it went. Well, the funny thing is, this image was functionally done about 60% of the way between we kept niddling and tweaking and fiddling and trying to, and it was really kind of amazing how the core of this image really came together as just tweaking the lighting.
Wow.
Like when you think of all the illustration that was done, that was only 60% of the way to finish. The rest of it was just really fine tuning and like blowing it up big. And there's a trick that artists do is when we have it the way we think we want it, we put it up on our screen and we walk to the other side of the room and look at it from like way. And they're like, now it doesn't look the same anymore. Yeah, we're so used to seeing it like right here. Just one of those tricks, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, amazing image. Absolutely fantastic image. This one was done by Florian, for those of you that know Spooky 770. Spooky 77. He's one of our legendary illustrators. He is our go-to guy for the scenes that have a huge number of mechs in them, which, as a funny little tweak, we've got a new artist that actually delivered an illustration on the last book that had even more mechs in it than Spooky ever came close to. It was funny. So this new artist, I believe he's out of Brazil, he turned in an illustration on the Dominions Divided book. And when he turned it in, Randall and I stopped. And I had to, he did it at 1200 DPI, which is super, super high resolution. I mean, ridiculous high resolution. And we scrolled in and I had to count mech by mech. He did 300, I think it was 370 mechs in one scene. And the sad thing was, he didn't realize that when I turned over the 3D files to him of the mechs, they weren't set to scale. So he had to go in and tweak 300 mechs.
Oh my God.
Right, because all the light mechs were the same size as the heavy mechs. They were all the same. So I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. And then I had him cut out like 200 of them. So there is a scene in the last book that is it's like 4 regiments lined up on a tarmac waiting to load on a dropship.
I want to bring up,
and it's this massive scope.
I want to bring up every single one of these pictures, but I'm only going to do one more before we get to questions. And it's actually, I had already picked it before you had just like started talking about how many mechs, and this one has a lot of mechs. It's the Capellan Victory.
Which number?
It is number 02.
So this doesn't have that many mechs in it, but it's a whole lot of infantry.
I can't see. Oh, I guess I could zoom in on my. I can't zoom in on OBS, but yeah, I can't tell if all of the little armies down, or the little armies that I can't think of the word. I'm blanking right now. Infantry. If they're in mechs or not from OBS.
Yeah, no, those are So that is the difference of scale. It's actually really cool. We rarely get calls to do scenes where we have all the different unit types. But here you have infantry, then you have infantry in battle armor, which are significantly larger. Then you have tanks, and then you have mechs, all side by side, so you can see how they scale together. That's actually pretty rare from like the art team side. We don't usually get scenes, and a big part of that is that it's hard. The infantry become almost undetailable because of the size, the scale. But so with this, we started a few years back doing these, massive victory parade. Set shots. And one of the cool things is that in this new generation of books, since the last 4 years, I believe since Tamar and we redid the Battle for Tukad, we started using a 2-page chapter opener. So instead of a full page just being the biggest image we do, now it's 2 pages side by side with a gutter down the middle. So we can actually do these really oversized images, which most people wouldn't know this, but this is twice the size of a cover. So we have a lot of real estate to work with. So our artists really get a chance to like dig in on some details that we wouldn't normally get a chance to show, just because we have a lot of room to work with. And of course, it's always fun watching how is the artist going to hide the fact that there's needs to be basically a dead space gutter right through the center of this thing where it's covered by the split pages, the centerfold.
Fair.
But yeah, so this is one of those 2-page scenes and it just came out amazing, just truly amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And this is done by a fantastic artist named Tanho Sim. He's been our go-to novel cover guy for the last like 3-4 years. And this was really funny. We now have, I believe, 4 artists dedicated to doing nothing but drawing BattleTech full time. Now they're all freelancers, but
that's so cool.
Yeah, but basically, I send them such a steady flow of work that they just pretty much do nothing but draw for us. And part of that is then a big part of my job is making sure that I'm flowing to them a constant, steady series of images that are enough to keep them afloat. So Tan is one of those, and yeah, so we brought him in. He reached out. He's like, "So what do I have to do to draw full time for BattleTech?" I was like, "Well, the truth is that's asking for abuse, really. Like, dude, you really want to go there? Because this is rough. But okay, if you want to do it, here's what it would take." It's like, yeah, I'm in. So I think I signed him 33 novel covers.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and he took it right on the chin. He's like, okay, great. And he started just cranking. He's a total workhorse.
Wow.
So yeah, so for those of you that know, like, Tan is one of like the novel covers that since we've been working through the library, the backlog library of stuff. The covers have been just coming out amazing, and that's all Tan. Tan has been doing the like 90% of those. Just a total workhorse. Great illustrator.
That's awesome. Well, I put us back on the cycling art so that we can get to questions in the last 13 minutes here. So thank you again, Dave and Shock, for moderating and for taking the questions for us. So for BattleTech, I am Belch is asking, any updates on when the Star League and Irby Lamb force packs will be out? Do you know?
You know
Brent?
what? Yeah, I have a stock answer for this. I never believe that China's going to deliver things really until I have them in hand. So even when I'm told, oh, it's on a boat or it's going through customs, I'm like, you know what? Until it arrives in the warehouse and our people physically open the box to see that it is what it's supposed to be, I don't like to say, oh, it's going to be this. So we have functional windows, and honestly, I've stopped paying attention to them just with the nuance of fulfilling all the things with the Kickstarter. I care too much. I just can't look too closely.
And these were not official, like they weren't Kickstarter exclusive releases where we were gonna fulfill them before releasing. But I think that we're still waiting on arrivals to the warehouse. I know for like Adepticon, we actually airshipped some in just to make sure that things would be there.
Yes, we did. We had 20 copies airshipped in and when like literally flown in, somebody on a plane walking on with a box.
Yeah.
And just so we had examples to show off. But my impression is that the shipment on these was going at the same time as the shipment to us for all the Kickstarter products. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, I don't know. I'll believe it when it comes off a boat and we can confirm that that's what's in the box.
But it hasn't hit the warehouse yet, as far as we know. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Spectre asks, any update on BattleTech Aces? Have you heard anything, Brent?
Just in this last the meeting that we were just in, BattleTech Aces was the last thing that came up. And I believe, let me double check my notes.
I think I left early. I think the first time, because everyone likes a Midwestern goodbye where we say goodbye and then spend 15 more minutes on the call. So I think I left at the first goodbye.
Yeah, so there has been a major movement on that one. That one is going through. So there is positive things on Aces moving through. It's it's path through the inner workings of Catalyst. So yes, things are moving.
I know it's moving. I'm not sure what more we're allowed to say at this point. So
exactly, I could tell you, but I shouldn't.
Then we'd have to kill you. Matt95501 asks, when will the premium Vulture and Wolverine be added to the CGL web store? I don't know, again, if those are in stock yet, but I know Talon's been working on the website, so we'll have to follow up with him.
Yeah, that's a good question. I know the premiums, they've actually been coming through quite quickly because it's a completely different production and fulfillment
right.
channel.
It's made here in the US, right?
Yeah, it's made domestically
Yeah.
and sent over. At least it has been. I know we were looking at shifting those over to a different kind of thing, but yeah, just in general, that is totally separate from the other stuff for like all the fulfillment of Kickstarters and the usual reprints and stuff. So that one has been going quicker. And one of the nice things is the one that's do show up, then because it's a web exclusive, we can turn it on quicker. We're not having to wait for all the usual what's it called when they tell the stores that something's available? It's called solicitation. That's
Oh.
So yeah, so when it comes through, we can just literally like flip a button, turn it on.
Cool.
Pretty soon.
Question from Prussian Havoc. For Brent, when it comes to Leviathans, what are some of the art challenges unique to the Leviathans Kickstarter fiction and marketing efforts?
Ooh, man. You know what? It's funny because the question is, what are the challenges? And I will answer what the challenges are, and the fact that I will then throw in our art team is amazing. And we have so many really, really, truly excellent illustrators available to us that we've been able to easily overcome them because we have a few artists that are huge fans of Leviathans. So the biggest challenge is being able to come up with illustrators who can bring that world to life and still have it feel equal parts World War I and steampunk, but in a way that is visually eye-grabbing enough to a modern game market in terms of shelvability, retailer appeal, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Being able to pull that off, we thought was going to be super, super hard. But what we did when I reached out to our existing art crew of very talented and well-proven illustrators, we had two artists that stepped up like, oh, we are huge fans of this. We want in, what do we got to do? And I'm not going to lie. Randall, Brent, and I we're like, we know we are asking a huge amount to bring the visuals for Leviathans to life. For those people that don't know, the original Leviathans all the artwork was created by Doug Chafee, and Doug Chafee is a legend. He was so amazing. There is no replacing Doug Chafee, but he passed. In fact, he turned in a cover for Leviathans, and I think 24 hours later he was gone. So trying to find somebody to replace someone who is so legendary is not easy. But we had two illustrators that were like, yeah, we are totally in. And Randall, Brent, and I were like, okay, are you really going to be able to step into the shoes? So we assigned both of them the most complicated assignment we could think of. And they both blew us away with what they turned in. We're like, okay, you guys are in. Having those two illustrators, and Tanho Sim is one of them. Just being able to step into the role of bringing Leviathans to life in a way that is just absolutely phenomenal. The other one is I believe it's Marco Panichetti. Marco Panichetti has been illustrating for both Shadowrun, Battletech. He illustrated Dragonfire for us. I actually originally hired him to work on Dragonfire back when he's got so many skill sets and talents. But yeah, he just completely sunk his teeth into the nuances for Leviathans, because a lot of that artwork was line art. Once again, back to my old thing, like we need like wireframe illustrations of these things, because that's the way illustrations were done back in the World War I era. Like this was the visuals for when they drew something. So being able to do that was tough, but it turned out amazing, and cool. I think y'all are going to be blown away with it.
Question from Rob Schubert. Someone please ask Brent who has the best beard in Battletech, please and thank you.
Oh man, there is a lot of hot trashery behind the scenes. I think that's the user-friendly version of that. But the truth is, no one on the planet can grow a beard like Randall Bills. There's just that man. His ability to grow hair is superhuman. So I'm gonna go Randall, no doubt.
Awesome.
Yeah.
For Brent, from Prussian Havoc, what new artists do you have joining the team?
There are a variety of them. I would say there are actually more new artists on Battletech now than I think there have been in the last decade.
Ooh.
And a big part of that is because we now have 3D models of those illustrations. So even illustrators that are not familiar with Battletech can jump in and draw correctly.
Cool.
Back in the old days, before we had 3D models, 60% of our time roughly was just measuring, because you have to figure out the scale and the lines for vanishing points and all that nuance, because you're talking about something that's 3 stories tall. In order to get it to look right, you have to get all that stuff down.
Yeah.
Now with 3D models, that stuff you can take a week and a half's worth of work and do it in 45 minutes.
Awesome.
It's kind of amazing. So it's allowed a lot of people that aren't diehard BattleTech fans, especially all the old school ones with the different variants and things, to generate art that looks just really, really top notch. And there are several illustrations in this new one, in Ilkon's Eyes, that are literally, these are their first illustrations of battle mech scenes ever. So yeah, there's a variety of them.
Bovi asks, is your son still playing lacrosse?
He is, yeah. He's my son is a junior now at Elmhurst University outside of Chicago, and this is the big. This last weekend was their first in-conference game. The way the lacrosse seasons are for the NCAA is you play like your first 10 to 12 games don't actually matter for anything. It's just experience, and then all the games that actually matter are the last 6 games of the season. So yeah, they're in the middle of that. He's doing great, playing well, loving the team, loving the experience, and thank you for asking.
Awesome. Kara Mindy's asking, Brent, who is the one responsible for the exposed ammo on the Cygnus?
That was before my day, actually. So when Jordan, first off, good call out to the fact that was the game property that I was brought in to help out. I was brought in, I believe the first release of that game that I was a part of was Wolfstrike. The Cygnus and the exposed ammo things, they were trying to do a really old, they wanted things to look primitive. And so they had this series of designs where the ammo feed was like literally an ammo belt feeding into these giant cannons, which looked kind of cool, but it had some real obvious problems. Like there's a weak spot. I think if I just shoot that, problem solved. But yeah, so that was partly done when Jordan had started off. They wanted a unique look, and nobody else had that. He wanted a unique look for the universe because he didn't want it to look like the original BattleTech. So he brought in illustrators that didn't really know or have any affinity for BattleTech. So it was concept designers that were just general purpose concept designers that hadn't specialized in mecha.
Cool.
So a lot of interesting stuff came out of that. And what was weird is that once those sketches were then turned over to modelers, the modelers were in China, and they didn't know anything about BattleTech either. So they would just do whatever they thought. And so long as they got it out in time, the modelers, Jordan was pretty much just signing off. It's like, oh yeah, that looks about right. Sure, go for it. Like it wasn't a really hard, fast quality control thing, because they were literally trying to create something that looked new, something that looked different. So yeah, a lot of that stuff we inherited on the BattleTech side because that stuff had been released as part of the MechClix game. So we called that all part of the Dark Age aesthetic. Awesome. And then we've been slowly overhauling that as we go. What I will say is one of the big ones for that, it wasn't just the Cygnus. The Legionnaire was one of the most common media mechs that came out during that Clix era, that had the exposed ammo feeds. And Anthony's team just finished redoing the design for that one, and the model, we approved it last week. Okay. So you will see an evolution of that should feel true to both the Spirit of Dark Age and BattleTech line as a whole.
Cool.
You should be happy with it. Yeah.
Well, we are 1 minute away from the top of the hour, so we're going to cut that off there. Brent, thank you so much.
One more question. What's it going to be?
Yeah, if I give you one more question, Brent, we're going to be here another 10 minutes, and I have a meeting starting in less than 60.
All right.
But thank you so much for coming. And just to let all of you know out there, we are on Thursday hosting 2 AMAs on Reddit. So the BattleTech Reddit will have Ray Aracia, line developer for BattleTech, and Aaron Cahall, assistant line developer. And Shadowrun will have, and that one is the BattleTech one is 8 to 10 Eastern PM. And then for Shadowrun, there will be an AMA on Reddit on the Shadowrun subreddit for with RJ Thomas and Jason Hardy. And that is from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. So come on over, ask lots of questions, and make them put in their 2 hours of work with you. And but other than that, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Brent, for joining.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.